On a freezing New York morning in 2025, former President Bill Clinton stepped away from his security detail on Fifth Avenue. He walked toward a homeless woman sleeping beneath a heating vent, and the entire city held its breath. Cameras turned, social media exploded, and no one could have predicted what came next. Because what Clinton carried in his pocket would change her life forever. The wind cut sharp through Fifth Avenue as dawn crept over the Manhattan skyline. Former President Bill Clinton, now 79 and long retired from political life, stepped out of a black SUV across from Trump Tower. Though this morning, his purpose had nothing to do with politics, media, or business. Dressed in a modest overcoat, his gait steady but slowed with age, he walked against the flow of polished shoes and steaming coffee cups that had already begun populating the avenue. A few paces ahead, unnoticed by most, lay a woman curled under a military jacket, surrounded by the telltale signs of someone living in survival mode. A rolled-up sleeping bag, a flattened cardboard pad, a half-eaten granola bar. Her name was Emily Martinez, but to the passers-by, she was just another homeless person lost in the city's noise. They didn't know she was once Staff Sergeant Martinez, a decorated combat medic who had served 2 tours in Afghanistan and carried shrapnel in her back to prove it. And they definitely didn't know that Bill Clinton had been searching for her for months. The media had not noticed him yet. They would soon. But Clinton wasn't here to make a statement. He was here because in his coat pocket, folded 3 times, was an old, worn photograph. It showed a dusty, blood-smeared field hospital. In the center, a young woman with sharp, alert eyes crouched beside a wounded soldier on a gurney. Her name had never been recorded on the back of the photo, just a date. August 12, 2022, Kandahar. The soldier in the photo was Clinton's nephew, Daniel, who had returned home 3 years ago with half a lung and a 1,000-yard stare. He barely spoke of the war, but what he did speak of, he spoke of often. The medic who saved me. The woman who had sung to him in Spanish while his body burned and everything else went dark. And for 3 years, Clinton had worked quietly, using what little influence he still held, to find her. Emily pulled her jacket tighter as the early sun reflected off the glass towers. The jacket was military issue, one of the few possessions she'd never pawned. She didn't wear it for warmth. It barely helped, but because it reminded her of who she used to be. A medic, a leader, a person with purpose. The streets had taken much from her. Her apartment, her practice, her dignity. But it hadn't taken her identity. From across the street, Clinton saw her face and froze. It was her. No doubt. A little older. Thinner. Tired in a way the body doesn't fully show. But the eyes, the same steady, storm-hardened eyes that had stared through the desert fire in Daniel's old photo, were unmistakable. Clinton's security team shifted uneasily as they noticed his sudden stop. "Mr. President," one of them said, stepping closer, "we need to move. The press is." Clinton raised a hand. "Give me a minute." Before they could react, he was already stepping into the street. Emily noticed the motion in her peripheral vision, old instincts kicking in. She tensed, scanned, assessed. The figure approaching was familiar, too familiar. It took a second to click. Bill Clinton. Her eyes narrowed. She'd seen enough headlines to know he didn't do walkabouts. As he reached her corner, Clinton slowed. The cameras across the street had started turning now. Phones lifted, but Clinton didn't seem to notice. His attention was locked on the woman before him. "Afghanistan?" he asked, voice low, eyes on the medic patch on her sleeve. Emily's spine straightened instinctively. "Yes, sir," she replied. "2 tours." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the photograph, creased, fraying, almost transparent from years of being handled. "You were there," he said. "With my nephew. Kandahar. August 12th. Emily blinked, her throat tightening. That date, that firefight, it had never left her. Clinton held out the photo. "He says you saved his life." Sang to him. Kept him awake when the pain got too much. Emily's eyes dropped to the photo. She touched it lightly, reverently. It was her, holding Daniel's bloodied hand, shouting for the medevac. She hadn't seen that picture since before her discharge. "I didn't think he made it," she whispered. "He did," Clinton said, his voice catching for a moment. Because of you. They stood there a moment, two relics of service and sacrifice on a New York street corner. Around them, the city buzzed, unaware of the history in motion. But inside that moment, the world had shrunk to just the two of them, and the weight of a long-overdue reunion. Emily Martinez had never liked attention. Not during her years as a medic, not during her brief time running a trauma clinic in Philadelphia, and certainly not now, standing on a busy Manhattan sidewalk, face to face with a former president and a dozen flashing cameras pointed her way. She gripped her backpack tighter, not of fear, but reflex. Her whole world was in that pack. Her documents, a few changes of clothes, a water-stained photo of her unit, and her dog tags, the only thing she kept hidden under her shirt, next to her heart. Bill Clinton, for all his political polish, wasn't playing to the cameras. His attention was solely on her, his body language broadcasting something she hadn't seen in years: respect. He looked not at the jacket or the unwashed hair or the fact that she hadn't had a decent night's sleep in weeks, but into her, through her, like someone seeing a long-lost comrade instead of a homeless vet. That was new. "I want to take you inside," Clinton said softly, motioning toward the tower behind him. "There's someone I think you'd like to see." Emily hesitated. Everything in her body tensed at the idea of stepping off the street and into that golden building. She didn't belong there. Not now. Not dressed like this. Her boots were split along the sides, her hands rough from cold and time. She didn't even remember the last time she'd looked in a mirror for more than a second. "I'm not what you think I am," she said quietly. "I didn't finish my last deployment. Got pulled out. Infection. PTSD. Paperwork took longer than my recovery." Clinton's voice remained steady. "I know exactly who you are. And so does my nephew." The word sat heavy in the air. Emily's heart kicked once. "He's here." Clinton nodded. "Upstairs. Hasn't stopped talking about you since the day he came back. We've both been trying to find you." She took a step back, her instincts flaring. "Why?" "Because he never forgot what you did. And he didn't want to just say thank you," Clinton said. "He wanted to make something better. Not just for you, for every vet like you." Emily's breath caught. For years, she'd been one of hundreds lining up outside the VA, waiting months for appointments, standing in soup kitchen lines next to soldiers she once would have led into combat. She'd seen the way people looked at them, or didn't. The looks that said, failure, burden, broken. She'd once worn a white coat. She used to command respect. But war stripped things from you, slowly, like rust over time. "How did he even find me?" she asked, her voice thin. Clinton hesitated, then pulled something else from his pocket. Not the photo this time, but a folded military document. She took it carefully, her fingers brushing his. It was her casualty report, the original. Emily's throat tightened. She remembered signing it, hazy with fever in a makeshift field hospital. It confirmed what she'd always suspected. Daniel hadn't just survived. He had been trying to find her. Her name, marked only as Medic EM in the first report, had later been filled in by hand. "I pulled strings," Clinton admitted. "The system loses too many names. We weren't going to let yours disappear too." Behind him, his security team had created a perimeter. Onlookers were beginning to murmur, the press staying just outside the line. Phones were still up, but no one dared to interrupt. Not yet. Emily glanced at the golden glass of the tower. So many days she'd slept under its shadow, never knowing that someone in those top floors was looking for her. "I've had a lot of promises made to me since I got back," she said. "Most of them broke." Clinton nodded slowly. "Then let this be the first one that doesn't." She didn't say yes. Not yet. But she stepped forward. The moment Emily crossed the threshold of Trump Tower, a building she'd stared at every morning for nearly a year, her senses went into overdrive. The lobby was warm, gleaming with polished marble and gilded fixtures. It felt like stepping into a different world, one she no longer belonged to. Her boots, cracked and weathered, made soft thuds on the expensive floor. She instinctively pulled her jacket tighter, as if shielding herself from the opulence. Bill Clinton walked beside her, offering no words, only a calm presence. Around them, the security team moved with quiet urgency, forming a protective buffer against the gathering crowd outside. Emily caught sight of herself in the mirrored wall of the elevator lobby, worn face, sunken cheeks, hair pulled back with a rubber band. She looked like a ghost of someone who used to be alive. As the elevator door slid open with a soft chime, she hesitated for a moment. Something about being contained in that small, rising space made her feel claustrophobic, not physically, but emotionally. She hadn't ridden in an elevator in over a year. She lived at street level now. Clinton stepped in and extended a hand to hold the doors. "You're safe," he said, not as reassurance, but as fact. She nodded and entered. The doors closed. The floor numbers lit up. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence in the elevator was deep and strange, cutting through the noise of the world outside. Emily felt the weight of the moment pressing in on her. Not just the physical altitude rising floor by floor, but the emotional one. She was climbing back into a life that had ejected her years ago. And at the top of this ride was a man she hadn't seen since he was bleeding out in her arms. Finally, Clinton broke the silence. "He's doing better than anyone expected," he said. "But he still has bad nights. Says he hears you singing when the pain gets too much." Emily swallowed. "I thought, maybe I imagined singing that lullaby. Like it was just something my brain made up during the firefight." Clinton shook his head. He remembers every word. "Mi pequeño ángel. That's what you sang, right?" Emily smiled faintly, surprised it didn't feel bitter. "My mother used to sing it to me. I thought if I could keep him focused on my voice, he might survive long enough to be evac'd." "You did more than that," Clinton said. "You gave him a reason to keep fighting." The elevator kept rising. A buzzing came from Emily's pocket. Her old phone, rarely used, had somehow come alive. Notifications were popping up, missed calls, messages, even emails from old contacts. She stared at the screen, stunned. Her face, captured on a dozen shaky smartphone videos, was already online. The headlines varied. Former President Clinton reunites with hero combat medic. From street to soldier. Who is Emily Martinez? And the inevitable cynics. PR stunt or redemption? She locked the screen and slid it back into her pocket. "They'll turn this into a story," she said flatly. "Something shiny and digestible. They'll never understand." "They don't need to," Clinton said. "This isn't for them. It's for him. For you." The elevator slowed. The moment stretched out. Emily found herself clutching her backpack, the only constant in her life since she lost her apartment. Inside were all the pieces of her identity. A copy of her DD, 214 discharge papers, the VA rejection letters, her dog tags, a notebook with scribbled song lyrics she used to calm herself down. None of it made sense in a world of gold elevators and former presidents. But maybe it could again. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. A long hallway stretched before her, lined with quiet luxury. At the far end, near a wall of glass that overlooked the New York skyline, a man stood with his back turned, tall, shoulders squared still. As the doors opened wider, he slowly turned. Emily froze. His face was older now, leaner, scarred. But the eyes, those deep, terrified eyes she remembered from the battlefield, were unmistakable. It was Daniel, and he was waiting for her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The hallway fell away. The city behind the window ceased to exist. In Emily's mind, the years unraveled, and she was back in Kandahar, kneeling in the burning wreckage of a Humvee, singing to a young soldier whose blood soaked through her gloves. Now that soldier stood before her, not a memory, not a ghost, but a living man. He was older, visibly scarred, his posture slightly altered by injury. But in his eyes, she saw the same helpless gratitude that had haunted her nightmares for 3 years. "Emily," Daniel asked, barely above a whisper. His voice was raw, not from disbelief, from memory, from finally placing a face that had lived at the edge of his consciousness all this time. She took a step forward, her mouth dry. "Daniel." He moved quickly, closing the distance, then stopped just short of embracing her, unsure whether he had the right. Emily, still unsure herself, simply reached out and touched his arm. It was real. He was real. The boy she dragged from the fire and held together with gauze, morphine, and a lullaby was alive. "You saved me," he said, the words catching in his throat. "You held my hand. You sang to me. I thought you were an angel." Emily tried to smile, but emotion pressed against her ribs like a vice. "I thought you didn't make it. After they evac'd you, I never found out your name. Never knew if I lived," he said, "because you wouldn't let me die." They finally embraced. Quietly. Fiercely. It wasn't dramatic or orchestrated. Just two souls who'd shared the worst of human experience, now connecting in the safety of silence. Clinton had stepped back, allowing the moment to breathe. When they pulled apart, Daniel gestured to a small lounge off the hallway. "Come sit. There's so much we need to talk about." Inside, the space was softly lit, far from the glare of the media frenzy unfolding several floors below. Daniel poured her a glass of water, his hand steady despite the scars. Emily noticed the healed skin along his wrist, the telltale signs of surgeries, reconstructive, burn treatment, nerve grafts. "You look good," she said, sitting cautiously on a leather couch. "Better than most people I know who've been through what we have." Daniel smiled faintly. "Took years. Therapy. Surgery. Nightmares that still haven't left. But I had something most don't. A reason." Emily raised an eyebrow. "You." He leaned forward, pulling out his phone. "I started a foundation, Angel Watch, for veterans like us, especially medics. Combat trauma, PTSD, housing, jobs. Everything the system failed to give you, or me." She blinked at the screen, seeing photos of veteran support centers, mobile clinics, group therapy sessions. Her name was mentioned, not directly, but in the mission statement, inspired by the medic who refused to leave me behind. "I've been looking for you since the day I woke up in Germany," he said. "They told me a female medic saved me, that she sang to me. I remembered your eyes. That's all I had." "And a song," she whispered. He nodded. "The lullaby. It never left me. I hear it sometimes, when things get dark." Emily looked down, emotion swirling. "I didn't do anything special," she murmured. "I was just doing my job. You were one of many." Daniel shook his head. "You did everything. And now, we want you to be part of this. Not as a face for the media. Not for show. We need your expertise, your perspective. You've seen both sides, the war and the homecoming." Emily leaned back. For so long, she had survived. That was it. Survived the cold. Survived the hunger. Survived the guilt. She hadn't imagined a path beyond that. But now one stood in front of her. A purpose. A second chance. "I'm not sure I'm ready," she said. "I'm still dealing with everything." Daniel nodded. "That's why we need you. Because you are still dealing with it. And because others need to see what healing looks like, in real time, not just in hindsight." The moment hung between them. Downstairs, reporters shouted through barricades. Headlines blazed. But up here, in this quiet corner of the tower, something powerful was unfolding. Emily Martinez, once a decorated combat medic, now a survivor of the streets, wasn't being rescued. She was being remembered, and asked to lead once again. The sun had climbed higher over Manhattan by the time Emily Martinez stood once more beside the window of Trump Tower, looking down at the chaos of flashing cameras and swarming headlines. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel like part of that chaos. She felt centered, solid. Behind her, Bill Clinton and Daniel sat at a long table where blueprints, notes, and digital layouts of the Angel Watch Foundation's expansion plan were spread out. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a movement. What had started as Daniel's desperate effort to honor the medic who saved him was growing into a national blueprint for veteran recovery. Trauma care without bureaucracy. Housing for the homeless. Rapid response teams for mental health crises. And now, they wanted her in the center of it. Clinton stood and joined her at the window. "The press will be relentless. We can't stop that. But we can shape what they see." Emily didn't look at him. "They'll call me a symbol. A comeback story. Something tidy." "Maybe," Clinton said. "Or maybe they'll see a soldier who didn't give up, even when the country did." Her eyes scanned the crowds. "I don't want pity. I don't want charity." "Then don't ask for it," Clinton replied. "Ask for investment. Ask for support. Ask for trust. You've earned all three. Daniel approached, holding her dog tags in one hand and a folded newspaper in the other. On the front page, a blurred screenshot from the video of their street encounter was printed in full color. The headline read, "Veteran saved my life. Clinton reunites war hero with nephew." The subheading made Emily flinch. From battlefield to pavement to purpose. She hated how clean it sounded. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she admitted, looking down at the tags in his hand. "You're still standing," Daniel said. "That's enough." There was a knock on the door. One of Clinton's aides peeked in. "They're ready when you are." The press conference. The public moment. Emily turned back to Clinton and Daniel. "This is more than just a press release. You're asking me to relive everything I've been trying to forget." "No," Clinton said gently. "We're asking you to help make sure no one else has to live it alone." She nodded. That she could do. When they walked out onto the small stage set up near the entrance of the tower, the flashing cameras were overwhelming. But this time, Emily stood tall. Clinton introduced her with brevity and respect. Daniel followed, speaking only for a moment before stepping aside. And then it was her turn. She stepped up to the podium, cleared her throat, and faced the sea of lenses and expectations. "My name is Emily Martinez," she began. "I'm a combat medic. I served in Afghanistan. I was wounded in 2022 and sent home. I came back to a country that didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with myself." The crowd was silent. "For 3 years, I've been invisible. I've lived on sidewalks, in shelters, in corners of cities where people don't want to look. But I'm not alone. There are thousands like me, veterans who served, suffered, and were forgotten." She paused. "Today isn't about me being rescued. It's about being remembered. And it's about building something that remembers everyone like me before it's too late." Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled. But Emily only saw the faces of veterans in her mind. The ones she knew. The ones she'd served. The ones she'd lost. "We can't fix everything. But we can start with truth. With speed. With care that doesn't come with a waiting list." She looked out across the city skyline. "This isn't the end of my story. It's the beginning of someone else's survival. That's why I'm here. That's why I stayed alive." As she stepped back from the microphone, the applause was subdued, respectful, real. She didn't need a standing ovation. She needed the world to understand. And slowly it did. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and press the like button.